Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Brainwave. And today we finally have a chance to break down episode 6 of Secret Invasion Home. And I know this video was, you know, not been out for quite some time, but don't worry, guys. We are coming out with more content. Like I said, I'm sorry this video could not come out sooner. We were just very, very busy, and we could not get this video out as fast as we did. However, don't worry, we do have a special surprise that I'm going to save until the end of the video. On top of that, we're also breaking down a bunch of new trailers very, very soon. So don't worry about that. More content on the way soon. But for now, I say we finally get into this breakdown of episode 6, Home, because there is a lot of stuff in this finale, and I cannot wait to break it down. But for now, let's start off with a minute 22 seconds where we see uh, Fury call Vara, and they talk about how Fury actually never really called Vara, and how he really only dialed the number in consideration and did not end up going through with the call, which is interesting. But he says that he probably will not come back, and Vara accepts that, and they end the call, and Fury leaves to what we know is New Skrullos, because Fury ends up pulling up to New Skrullos in his car. However, the guards are still standing outside, so in order to get rid of them, he baits them with the car by making it roll forward towards them as if someone was in it. They shot at the car window. Turns out no one was there, and Fury actually ambushed them, getting the jump on them and killing them both. However, one thing you have to notice about Fury is that he's actually killing the girls and then actually shoots one twice after he's dead, which is not something Fury does, so keep that in mind. But we go to 2 minutes, 30 seconds, or actually, no, 5 minutes and 20 seconds. Sorry, that is my mistake. 5 minutes, 20 seconds, we see Rhodey and the president talking to the admiral, who is highly, highly decorated, by the way, for Rava, aka Rhodey, to be talking back to in this scene. But we see them talking about the plans for bombing New Skrullos. They talk about how President Vladimov, which is obviously the Russian president in the MCU, it's like Vladimov. You kind of get the reference there. And they talk about how they have 30 dead Russians on the motorway, which was from episode 4, Beloved, and how that is proof that the Russians sent the attack on the president, and that Rhodey believes that they should get rid of this problem now, even though we know it's Rava just trying to convince the president to bomb New Skrullos on Gravik's orders. So this is all just really insane to think about, because everyone's not on everyone's side. It's kind of, there's no one person on one direct side, you know? Because technically, Rhodey's like, yeah, we should do this, but it's Rava from the Skrull side saying to do that, and then Fury is trying to stop the president, stop Rhodey from getting attacked by the president, while also trying to convince the president that the Skrulls can be good. So it's kind of like a mix of all sides here. But I say we continue on, because after this scene, we see them pull up the satellite images of New Skrulls, which were given to Rava by Gravik, and Rhodey actually does something out of the ordinary for his job status, and Rhodey actually creates a speech for the president. Now, you might find this as, normal because he's the president's right-hand man. However, usually the president will make these speeches themselves, or they will use the help of a writing committee in order to make the speech sound good. However, Rhodey actually does this out of free will, and it's just showing how Rava really wants this plan to work. But we continue on to 7 minutes and 5 seconds, where Fury walks through New Skrullos, and it turns out that he has a device that can track radiation levels, which turn out to be really, really high for humans. And he actually starts coughing a lot because of this. He has pills that can slow it down. Of course, the pills are green because of Skrulls and stuff like that. And I don't know what kind of pills they are exactly. I know some types of medication can slow down radiation, but not end it entirely, so it's kind of interesting. But I do know that Fury has the intention of trying to slow down the radiation long enough to get to Gravik using these pills. So after the scene, we go to 8 minutes and 5 seconds, where Fury gets further into New Skrullos, and he sees all of the dead bodies, including Beto, and he sees the place abandoned. And it turns out that Gravik actually locked up all the scrolls. I think he actually mentions that later on in the episode, but he locks up all the scrolls. That is crazy. He locked up his own people on the Skrull compound that's about to get bombed. That is a crazy, crazy thought. But anyway, we go back to the hospital scene with Rhodey and the president getting a call by Sonya saying that Fury is coming and that they have to move the president to another room. And I'm going to mention this now, guys, because specifically what happens here is in the episode, the scenes will jump back and forth, showing how important these kinds of interactions are. That's why I want to be able to show you guys the footage. And we are working on that, by the way. We're getting a little bit closer to being able to put the footage up on the screen, which is nice. So I'll let you guys know when we have that finished. But basically, if I mention a scene with Sonya, Rhodes, or the president, that is in the hospital scene where the president's located. And then if I mention anything New Skrullos related, it's Fury, Fury and Gravik, or anything that are related to New Skrullos. So if I mention Fury and Gravik, we're in New Skrullos. If I mention the president, we're in the hospital scene. Because it does kind of jump around at this point in time. So we go to Fury getting to the Super Skrull scene to find Gravik, and Gravik actually makes sure that Fury cannot take these pills because once he drops them, he actually crushes them, which is crazy. And Gravik says to Fury that they should have a talk about why he's doing this. But as that happens, we cut back to the president getting moved, and his guards are actually getting hit by poison darts, showing how they have to move the president really quickly, and how Sonya warned them about the president being in danger. So, and we don't know who's shooting these poison darts. We assume it could be Sonya, but you're definitely not shooting all of these poison darts alone. So we know someone else is behind this. We don't know who it is yet. We'll get to that. But we see the president being moved, his darts being shot by poison darts, and then we cut back to Gravik talking about how a person can feel the level of radiation in their body, which is kind of true, kind of not for certain levels of radiation, but I'm not going to really go into detail on that now. So I think for now we just continue. And Gravik actually talks about Fury's past projects and how he was such a strong operative for S.H.I.E.L.D., how he made Project Insight, the Helicraft carrier, and he actually mentions how Fury was the one that sent him on his first mission to kill the man that he's actually morphed into throughout this whole series. So that man that Gravik is morphed into was actually killed by him. And it turns out that he had a wife and kids. Even though Gravik says he was a little bit misguided, he does regret killing him and listening to Fury's order, because the real reason he killed him for Fury was because he looked up to the man that was going to get the Skrulls a home, which we know did not happen. So Gravik regrets listening to Fury's orders, and then he mentions Talos being weak in general, and he wants to burn humanity. Keep those in mind, okay? So then Fury feels guilty about not finding them a place to live, and he tells Gravik that after the blip he felt relief, because when the blip happened, he no longer had to keep this promise to the Skrulls and never had to worry about fighting ever again. Now you might be questioning this because during the blip, he was not relieved. He literally had to contact Danvers as quick as possible, and then literally said, and I quote, "Mother, I'm gonna let you finish the rest," but because he didn't actually finish it either. But he was not relieved in that scene. Keep that in mind. Don't worry, this is going somewhere. Don't. But he said that he came back to Earth after the blip because of the fact that he felt responsible for Gravik and the other soldiers that he left behind. And then he says because he failed the Skrulls, he actually gave Gravik what he wanted, aka the Harvest, which is a bunch of Avengers DNA of the blood that the heroes spilled in the Battle of Earth that were there. And Fury basically just gave Gravik the most powerful vial in MCU history, just ever. But he gave this vial to Gravik, and he tried to make a deal with him, saying if he left Earth, that he could have it and take the scrolls, with him. However, Gravik does not approve of this plan. He's like, "No, I'm getting my revenge," and it turns out that Gravik says that the radiation is eating his brain. I love this comment too, because Gravik's not gonna do this. Like, it's a great idea, but if it was done a little bit earlier, maybe he would have considered it. But anyway, we cut back to the president at 16 minutes. The president is still being moved into another hospital room from Fury, and it actually shows a clip of the Russian troops lining up near the border, along with Ukrainian troops actually spreading out top secret information, which is showing just how close these people got to World War III. Like, literally 2 feet, and they would have been World War III. But let's continue back to the scene in New Scrollos. Like I said, there's a lot of jumping, so just stay with me. Gravik files all the DNA with the Avengers in it, and when he does, there's a list of a bunch of Avengers who were actually at the Battle of Earth. I would read this list, however, it's way too many people. I think we see Winter Soldier, we see Danvers, we see Steve Rogers, we see Winter Soldier, we see Hulk, we see Black Panther, we see Doctor Strange, I think, at some point. We see, I think, someone else, I think, as well. Valkyrie, Thor, we see those two. There's a bunch of ones we see, and a bunch of ones we're going to see in the battle, which is coming. But he sees that all the Avengers' DNA, and we cut back to the scene in the hospital. Sonya gets Rava at gunpoint after Rava checks the closet and doesn't check behind the door. Now, I don't know if you guys are if this is just me, but when you played hide and seek as a child and you hid behind the door thinking that they would just that person that walks into the room would just end up walking out and not seeing you. Okay, this is like the oldest trick in the book, and somehow Rava did not do this. Okay, Rava, pull it together. This is the oldest trick in the book. This is okay, but anyway, let's continue, because after this, we cut back to the scene with Fury and Gravik ends up using the machine, activating it after he gets the Avengers DNA on file. He activates it with Fury inside. This man is brutal. He does not care that Fury is inside. He activates it, and both him and Fury are basically stuck in this highly energy based, or energy radiation based, orb thing. We still haven't figured out what that glow on the machine was exactly, but whatever it is, it's not good, especially for a human. Keep that in mind. Don't worry, this is going somewhere. But then we see Gravik become huge. Now, this is where the fight scene pretty much starts, and I want to talk about what's happening in this scene, because there's a bunch of stuff happening. So, after Gravik uses this machine, he becomes huge. And the reason for this is actually because of the Super Soldier Serum, which is in Captain America's DNA, Winter Soldier's DNA, and a bunch of other stuff. So let's talk about this. So obviously, Gravik instantly got all of the powers that the Avengers had at the Battle of Earth. And the first two we see are visible are the Super Soldier Serum. And the reason for this is because when Steve Rogers initially took the Super Soldier Serum, it boosted all of what was in you already. So since Steve Rogers was not really that strong, it boosted his strength and it made him look really, really muscular and tall, which is why we see Gravik just become instantly buff. Okay, I don't know when his shirt came off either, but he's jacked. Okay, is my point. So we see him become instantly strong and ends up throwing Fury against the wall. Right now, as he's about to land the final blow on Fury, he actually catches the punch, and then in this epic scene where Fury catches the punch of that Gravik is throwing at him, the Secret Invasion intro plays, and it turns out it was Gaia, and she Hulk smashes him out of the building, quite literally. And this is the plot twist, because some people knew this already, that this was going to happen, but I didn't. I did not know that was going to be Gaia. Okay, I got fooled hard. So then we see Fury at the hospital, actually at the hospital. So Sonya was not lying about Fury being at the hospital. Okay, so let's rephrase this. So now when I'm talking about the hospital, guys, I'm talking about where Fury is, Sonya, Rhodes, and Ritson. Okay, when I'm talking about the hospital. When I'm talking about New Scrollos, it's Gaia and Gravik. Okay, so Gaia and Gravik, New Scrollos scene. Fury, Sonya, Ritson, Rhodey in hospital. Okay, got it. Just establishing that. But anyway, we see Gaia tells Gravik that he is weak, and this is after the scene where Fury reveals to the president that Rhodey is a Skrull. But after this scene, like I said, Gaia says that Gravik is weak, and she transforms her arms. So let's talk about the two arms she transforms into. One, she has extremist abilities on one arm here, and then she has a Drax arm on the other one. Okay, and she's got little baby fingers. She's got little Dave Batista Drax fingers, little, which I found a little bit weird, but it was fine because we didn't really see her fingers for that long. But anyway, she uses, like I said, Drax and extremist. Okay, now Gravik actually gets a Groot arm and an Abomination arm. We could tell because he's actually got a fin for an ear, which is something Abomination has, right? So that's how the fight starts. They clash. So they're beginning to clash as Gravik throws a car at Gaia, and to dodge it, Gaia actually uses ghost powers. Which, if you don't know what I mean goes from Ant-Man and the Wasp, where she can phase through things. So Gaia actually phases through the car and dodges the attack. So then, Gravik changes his arm into a Korg arm. I don't know the name of the species, sorry about that, but a Korg arm, right? And Gaia switches her extremist arm to the Frost Beast arm, where she creates a ice kind of like sword with her arm. And they go at it hand-to-hand combat. Gaia slices Gravik almost in half entirely. And she ends up throwing it against the wall, and that is when we cut back to Fury trying to convince the president that Rhodey is the Skrull that he's been looking for, and how they've been using Skrull mind chambers to stay on top of the game. So remember, so went from Gaia attacking Gravik, and then instantly cuts to Fury trying to convince the president, because this is the stake here. If Fury can't convince Ritson, then that bomb is coming off. You guys have to realize that. So Fury's scene in the hospital is just as important as Gaia's fight, because if he doesn't win this, they're gonna die. And Gaia's there. So if they bomb that, Gaia and Gravik are both there. So that's kind of crazy. So it's all linked, which is really insane. But they fight back. So we go back to the fight with Gaia and Gravik. Gravik, being pinned up against the wall, use Ebony Maw's powers to telekinesis. Throws rocks at Gaia and then pins her, right? And then does a Hulk smash kick, similar to how Hulk actually kicked Emil Blonsky in the Incredible Hulk movie. And he kicks her and sends her flying. Okay. Then we cut back to the scene with Fury trying to tell the president that the Skrulls will win if you trust Rhodey and stay on course, which is what Rava is saying to do. She's saying, hey, president, stay on course. Do it. Trust me. And we know that's not the truth. But anyway, that happens. And then we continue on with this. Sorry, guys. This is kind of a little bit mixed up here. Mm-hmm. And boom, we're back. So, Gaia gets up after being knocked down by Gravik. We switch scenes now again. And Gaia turns her arm into Call Obsidian, which at least I could be wrong in that, but I think it's Call Obsidian. And then Gravik actually turns his arm into the Call Obsidian Thanos. So then they run at each other, and they end up both using Carol Danvers' powers, aka Captain Marvel. They both end up using it almost like instantaneously, but almost kind of like accidentally. And I want to mention that in something we're gonna do later on, uh, but not like in this episode. Later on, like for the channel, I'm gonna mention that. I'm gonna bring it up at some point again. But basically, they both fly up into the air, and Gravik gets a hold of Gaia, basically breaks her arm and begins to choke her. And uh, as Gaia says that, as Gaia gets pinned, she uses Mantis's ability and puts Gravik to sleep. Then we cut back to the scene with Fury and Sonya trying to talk the president down and saying how if they were wrong, he could send them both to prison, and he can flatten Russia anyway with the bombs. Then we cut back to Gravik and Gaia on the ground using Captain Marvel powers again. Gaia actually uses Cull Obsidian, Abomination, and Ghost to run at Gravik using Danvers' powers. Gravik only uses Danvers' powers actually in the scene as well, which shows how weak Gaia actually got Gravik with the Mantis ability. So that happens. Uh, Gaia manages to get past him, gets up close, uses Cull Obsidian's arm to pin him down. Gravik, as one final word, says, "You are just like your parents," and that's when Gaia blasts him straight through his chest with Danvers's plasma blasts or whatever they are exactly. But you know he has extremists, by the way. So that blast had to be powerful to get him killed, and it was just that, and Gaia ends up killing Gravik. So back at the hospital, the Fury and Sonya are still talking to the president. Rhodes actually gets the gun from Sonya, and Fury ends up shooting him and revealing to the president that it was a Skrull. So then we cut back to New Skrullos. Gaia is freeing all of the people out of the mine chambers, one of which was Rhodey and Ross. Rhodey and Ross. Ross is who we saw in the beginning of the series on that tunnel part. And then we even saw Rhodey in a medical uniform. And guys, this is the plot twist. Rhodey was in there since Civil War, meaning this version of Rhodey does not know Iron Man's dead, does not know anything, right? And the reason for this is because Rhodey actually crash landed in Civil War when he gets shot out of the sky by Vision accidentally. But Rhodey crashes, and he doesn't know that Tony's dead. He's been there for a good 7 years, pretty much. That's crazy to me. But we'll talk more about that at another point in time for this event that we're doing on the channel. But we see Guy get all the people out of the chambers, and we go back to Ritson in the hospital after all of this has occurred. Rava was revealed as Rhodey. Gaia gets all of the people out of New Skrullos, and the president decides, let's make a threat against every Skrull that is walking amongst us. And that was crazy from him, because we'll actually see later on how the people of Earth actually start to attack random civilians, not knowing if they're Skrulls or not, basically turning everyone against each other, which is crazy, right? Which is one of the biggest plot twists ever, because not they were trying to prevent war, but just ended up starting a whole revolution anyway, which was crazy. And then we see how Fury goes back to the sites where he's getting picked up from the Saber space station. He tells the president that was a bad move. He should call it off, and how Ritson's like, you should know that this is the only way, and get them off my planet. So Fury then hangs up the call. He actually meets up with Vara again, who actually meets him at the location, which I didn't even know she knew was there. Like I said, it's kind of like I don't know how she knew. I think Fury kind of told her. I just don't know when. But Vara meets with him there. She says that um he wants her he wants oh no, she wants him to love her as she is in her own skin. And then Fury actually ends up saying that he likes Vara and not Priscilla. He loves Vara for who she is, ends up kissing her. And Vara actually was going to become a peacemaker between the Skrulls and the Kree. And if you guys don't know, the Kree are actually the ones that took them away from their planet in the first place, which is ironic. But yeah, so she becomes the peacemaker for the Kree and the Skrulls. Gaia actually meets up with Sonya Fallsworth, and Sonya's like, "Do you want to work together?" And she's like, "Yes, but let's not make the same mistakes that Talos and Fury did." So they end up walking away with each other. Gaia still having her crazy, crazy power set, and Sonya uh, being able to provide her the resources that can get her Skrulls to safety. Because she actually becomes the leader of the Skrulls in this scene, which is great. I think Gaia was probably going to be the best leader for the Skrulls. Talos was okay. Gravik, he's crazy, and she's probably a mix of both. So end up working out anyway. But Gaia meets Sonya in the alleyway. Like I said, it's also revealed in this scene that there are actually a billion more like Skrull chambers, which is crazy. And we end this with Vara going up to the Saber space station with Fury, and that is how the series ends. I gotta say, I loved Secret Invasion. It's definitely one of the better Marvel shows in my opinion, and I love this show and what it set up for the MCU because there is a lot. Now you might be wondering, how are we going to talk about all this stuff that it's set up for the MCU? Well, that is what I wanted to mention in the video, and we are doing a live stream. That's correct. You heard me. A live stream on YouTube on us giving our theories about Secret Invasion, on what we think is going to happen for the MCU, what it's going to set up, what it means for future projects, and a bunch more. And this will actually, hopefully, be Ziltion's first debut, which would be fantastic to have him in, a stream for his first debut on the channel. So that's going to be fun. That's going to be exciting. I don't know the date yet, but I will post a YouTube short actually about the date and when it's going to happen. It will probably happen this week, but I don't know when yet. So I'll keep in touch throughout on the channel with a YouTube short. So stay tuned for that. But for now, this is going to be the end of the video. Hope you guys have enjoyed, and we'll see you all in the next one.